Welcome to Art is Essential, the Gavilan television show about the importance of art in our lives. I'm Fran Lozano, Dean of Liberal Arts and Sciences at Gavilan College, and your host today. Each of our shows features a local artist or artist working in a different medium. Today we have with us visual artist Carol Peters. Welcome to the show, Carol.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, and we're interested in hearing a little bit about the art that you practice. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I've been in the arts for a long, long time. I studied art at San Jose State when I was, in college, and I was thinking all my life I think I've been a teacher and actually helping other people, develop their talent. And in the process, I've always been asked, I've been involved in a lot of community, everything. I was on the original Bonanza board, if you can believe that, when I was a teenager. And I've always volunteered time as well as, taught and raised my children. And I think a lot of my knowledge besides my college has come from people asking me to do things that I'd never done before, such as on a karate studio. Can you paint my window so that we can see the logo this way, but you have to paint the letters backwards? And I'd be painting and it would run down, and so I had to, call somebody that actually paints on glass. How do you do this? Paint a mural on the wall, well, it's crumbling, so call a muralist. How do you, get it to stick? Just learning from other people as well throughout the years. So I think a lot of the things that I've done has been a result of just not jobs, they were all, volunteer kind of things.
And you work in something as small as a wine glass and as large as a mural. And
yes.
Yeah, what are the different kinds of skills that are needed in those different art forms?
The largest thing I've ever done is I got a call from a lady that was in charge of the Silicon Valley Charity Ball, and they make tons of money, millions and millions and millions of dollars for charities. And they wanted to do something for the gang task force, and they wanted it done in a gang style, not a gang style, but with spray paint. And they had a theme. So that project was probably about 60 feet long and 40 feet tall. But I didn't know that when I said yes. I just thought, oh my gosh, Gilroy Gang Task Force, that'd be awesome to get money raised and put back in the community. And I had some students in class, and we actually approached it like a real job. They had to submit their sketches, and I knew that they could, use the spray cans, and we developed design that was, we had 4 or 5 sketches. She came down and she approved them. She incorporated different kinds of, ideas. So it was wonderful. But then we had to I thought we could do it in a classroom, but she came down and she started rolling out these canvases, and there was like 4 or 5 that were going to be hooked together. Huge. And that was the biggest thing I've ever done. I helped them, of course. And then down to the little martini glasses that I just painted this weekend for a basket I'm donating for a Latino scholarship.
Did your art education prepare you for these things? Were you learning, different techniques and sort of a variety of different things, or were you focused when you were in school?
When I was in school, I just was mainly thinking about just learning what each class was, teaching. For example, if it was watercolor or oils or acrylics, or had sculpture, because I knew I wanted to teach at a secondary level. So you have to do metals and a little bit of everything. My concentration was painting, and I also, in my graduate year, did a lot of printmaking, which was etching and lithograph and that kind of thing. But I think it's just having a curious mind and saying, wow, that sounds really interesting, I want to do that. And then trying to find a way to, how do I actually achieve this? How do I make it happen? I think that's, in anyone's life, I think you have a basic education, but then what you do with it is up to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. So Ascencion Solorzano, you did a portrait of her. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, that's kind of the wildest story. Being an artist, I was asked to illustrate a book on the Ohlone Indians, which I did. And I went through book after book after book, and couldn't find any real pictures because, they were before cameras. But I did find a picture of Ascencion Solorzano, who's the last Ohlone medicine woman. And her bone structure, I kind of took her bone structure and used it when I illustrated the book, because it was a historical history, so it had to be real. So when I finished the project, I hadn't painted her or illustrated her, because they wanted all these other kind of pictures. And I was haunted every night in dreams by her image saying, paint me, paint me. And I'm like, you know, I don't want to paint you. And I really didn't have a reason to paint her. I didn't want to paint her. But really, finally, after night of not getting any sleep, I got a canvas and I thought, you know, forget about it, I'm painting her. Then, you know, I thought, here I have this painting, what do I do with it? And I know Sal Tomasello at Ascencion, he's a principal. And I told Sal, I said, do you know, want this picture? But the way I had painted it, I'd read so much about the Ohlonies and their lifestyle. They had, you know, got up in the morning, they greeted the sun, and so I used all the colors of their history in her picture. So it's kind of like a graphic picture. It's kind of like a Warhol, where it's not a realistic, it's realistic, but it also is kind of like a graphic, and the colors are not what you would call a portrait type colors. And I explained it to him, and then he said, why don't you come to the school and talk to our students? We're having a parent night. So I was invited, and I actually told the story of the Ohlonies and through the picture. So I thought afterwards, maybe that's why I was having the dreams, because as an art educator, not only did I do the portrait, but I'm sure a lot of the students really didn't know about Ascencion and the reason the school was named, you know, after her. So it was kind of a neat thing. And now that I'm finished, she finally has left me alone.
Oh, that's a joke.
It's a joke.
Okay.
Sorry.
So is that typical of your process? Do you have these kinds of, you know, projects that haunt you almost? No, that's not typical.
No, that's not typical. It's just, that was one. I think, you know, before I retired, I basically was trying to get my students to have the passion and have the freedom and find what they could give in their art, because I think everyone is unique. And to me, if I look at you, I'm thinking you see the world differently than anyone else. Everyone does. So how does it look when you put it on paper? You know, I was always so interested. It was like all these people out there, and they're going to show me something brand new, and just to get them to have that freedom. So that was my passion, my concentration, and to see them go on and do something better than I could ever do, or they could even, you know, fathom doing, was just, to me, the miracle. And then doing a little painting on the side, working in the community, that kind of thing. Because Gilroy, you know, I was born and raised here. I love Gilroy. Working in the community is just part of my life. But then when I retired, it's like, okay, now what can I do? Because I've never really found that out. And the Ascencion picture was one. And I think a lot of times now I'm just letting things get into me. I feel like when they inhabit me and I can't get rid of the idea, and I finally bring it out and paint it, I understand it better. And I did that with Roberta Hewen. I always admired her. And to me, whenever she spoke and whenever she had ideas, they were so new, and to have her ideas transcend her age, because she always was young in her ideas and vibrant. And I love the spirit. So I finally approached her and said, can I paint you? Another kind of thing like that. So I think that's kind of where I'm going, looking at something and absorbing it. I paint real fast, because having to help 30 people in an hour, you know, that's like a minute a piece or something. You have to be a real quick draw. So I kind of get it in my head, get the image in my head, and then bam, it's down. I can do it real fast.
Well, that's the teaching component then, is the 30 people that you're helping in an hour.
Right,
yeah.
right. You have all these people, or sometimes 30 was 35. Or then they extended the period, which was wonderful. But gave you a little bit more time per person, but you always wanted to be able to at least touch base with everyone, you know, so that they don't get so lost. And then once they're on a roll, once you have like an advanced class, the energy's just there, and they're just, it's wonderful. It's the biggest high you can ever get, is when you're teaching, students that really understand what they're doing.
Well, and when you've got the beginning classes, and you've got, some students who think they're going to grow up and be artists, and others who think they can never draw anything, how do you work with those kinds of differences?
Well, I think it's just like anything else. Anyone can learn to draw. I tell them that, so you haven't started yet. It's there. I mean, it's already there. It's just like if you were going to, I always used to use the stick shift, because I started, learning to drive with a stick shift. And you know how you jerk it first, and then pretty soon you're shifting, you're going a little farther, and then all of a sudden you're driving and you're forgetting about how you even, shifted. Same thing, there's basics. There's just basics that take you there. So if you're just patient enough, I mean, you're going to be able to draw, and then you could surpass these people that think they're so great.
So it isn't magic. Anybody can learn.
It's not magic. I would have been out of a job.
Okay.
If everybody knew how to draw.
Well, you worked with some former students recently from Gilroy High School, correct?
Yes.
And this is for a fundraiser. You all collaboratively put a painting together, as I understand?
We did, but it wasn't intended for a fundraiser when we did it. It was just for fun. I had them, a lot of students call over the holidays, how are you doing, this and that. So I thought it'd be so much fun just to get together and paint. And there was no idea of what was going to happen afterwards or for the fundraiser. That wasn't even in the picture. It's just like, let's get together in an afternoon and just paint. And a lot of students have gone on and done amazing things in film and cartooning, and they're famous. I mean, you see their work, and they came from Gilroy High. So we got together, and it was pouring rain. I got 2 great big canvases. Of course, nothing small for me. Had to get a truck to bring them home, and I thought, I don't want to have people like freeze up, like, oh, I haven't painted in a long time, I don't know what to do. So I thought, we'll start all on one canvas or 2 canvases, and each person will have a section, and I'll have a little timer, and then we move to the other person's area, so no one owned the area. It could be painted over, it doesn't matter, okay? So we got together 2 teams, Team Carol, Team Richard. Richard Young, he was my era, and then I tried to get kids from like the 80s, the 90s, 2000, the eras that I taught, and just had the paint there, got the bulk paint, and started in on the white canvas. And we actually, Seth Love, who is at CMAP, came and videotaped it, and didn't know what it was going to look like. But we were all artists, so we, you didn't have to teach them how to mix color and how to do this and that. They had that creative energy, and then that freedom of not having to draw something. And it turned out absolutely amazing. I mean, just absolutely amazing. And we had kind of talked, now what if they turn out really good? And we're thinking, maybe we could give back to an art student going on and actually give a scholarship. But nothing was really, set in stone, because it was just an experiment. But that's actually what happened. So now we're going to auction them off on a silent auction at the Chipino Feed on May 10th. And yesterday I took them to South Valley Bank, so they're up at the bank. They're beautiful. I'm just, excited.
And they look cohesive, so it doesn't look...
I know, it's amazing.
No, I need to understand how that happened, because...
I don't know, I just, my team, all we said is let's decide if it's going to be warm colors or cool colors, because if you mix warm and cool, they turn brown. So we don't want to have somebody, with yellow or orange, and you're going over with blue and it's turning brown. So we said, let's do cool colors. So we started out, just whatever, kind of abstract. Richard Young is more precise. He's more of a sign painter, and he's a brilliant painter. I mean, he's really a master. And they pretty much sectioned theirs off and actually started and moved from the section and left their sections clean. Or my team were just like going over everybody's work. It was crazy. It was really fun. And then after, getting back and saying, what can we do to make it work as a one piece? And so you see the creative process in the film, and it's just, you know, talking about it. How do we you know, balance this out? How do we make it work?
Talk a little bit about working by yourself. This is a collaborative process, but you also do some art just with yourself. And what's that like?
Well, it's hard without all these people around you, because I was used to painting when I had all, you know, my class. Sometimes I would paint after school and kids would be in there, and, you know. So I found it really hard when I retired. But what I do now is I started thinking of it as a job. Okay, you go to your studio. I have a studio in the garage. You go out there, you turn the music on like you used to do when I was in school. And I have to have the idea, though, already in my head. I have to have the visual, or I'll take pictures. If I see something I really think is beautiful, I'll take pictures and I'll go through them and I'll put them together. You know, I'll say, gee, I like this tree, I like this, I like whatever. And I'll just sketch it out, you know, with pencil and start painting. And usually it doesn't take me very long. And I love it. I think, why am I not out here all the time doing this? It's getting the idea. It's getting that idea inside and then wanting to actually bring it out for me.
Does that idea come just on its own? It's like inspiration and you can't really predict, or can you do things to make the ideas kind of bubble to the surface? Or
yeah, you can. And also you can go out and just, you know, block off a canvas and start just messing with color. You know, just I just want to see what happens when I put down, you know, they have mediums now that are really neat. They're like, you can texture your canvas, you can texture your paint, you can make it really thick, you can manipulate it so that it looks like a Van Gogh. Instead of wasting all your paint, you actually add the medium to it and it gives you that nice, you know, palette looking. So you can do that type of thing, which is really fun. I just painted a chair yesterday. I went out there and I thought, I have these stools, and I actually, one day I was just thinking about my dad, and I painted my father on the top of the stool. You know, just stuff like that. And yesterday I just went and I did an abstract thing. And I love to airbrush. I used to airbrush all the time and actually do the stencils and do it very precise. So I just like to experiment with lots of medium and lots of color and actually mixing the medium together.
Do you do work with any of the computer programs, you know, Photoshop and Illustrator and those kinds of things? Have you?
I've tried.
Okay.
Actually, I've been to Gavilan. I think Gavilan is a little jewel untapped by a lot of people, because I've come out here always and just taken classes, even though I've gone through school. I actually taught. I taught a summer at Gav, and I've taught at University of Santa Clara. I've taught in the teaching program. I taught art to, you know, the graduate students there, and I don't need units, but I'd come out here because I want to learn more, you know. So I took a graphic class here. I was miserable. I wanted to get my paintbrush in there and stop the line from going on. I was not good. I admire whoever, you know, can do that.
I'm interested in the process that you work with when you're developing young talent. So you've talked about students who've gone on and they're, you know, performing out in the world in very interesting ways. And how did you help them get there? How did you help them find, you know, the artist in themselves?
I think I just think, for some reason, I'm a better motivator in a way than, or making people believe they can. And I think once you have that, there's nothing to stop you. I think people don't realize how much potential they really have. And I've actually seen that. I've seen things happen that have been just amazing things. And I think once you instill that idea that there's no barrier, you put your own barrier up. And once you decide that, you know, you have this ability, and there's nothing stopping you. There's nothing in the world to stop you from doing what you want to do. And if they had any kind of a glimmer that they wanted to go on, in my advanced class, at the end, I taught all these advanced classes, and people wanted to take them over. I said, well, you can't I can't have that same curriculum if you've had this class already. So what happened is they were independent study. So I knew where you were. Now you tell me what school you're going to, and we'll work toward that portfolio for that school, and we'll get you there where you need to be. And so I worked independently with all these students in one class, and you might be doing, okay, they need an acrylic on canvas. Well, this one needs an animation film, so we're gonna do that with you, and we're gonna do this. So it was like all this stuff out. I couldn't have done that when I first started to teach, because it would have been too chaotic. I wouldn't have known how to manage it. But it was like, that was your independent study class, and it worked. So when they left, they had their portfolio on a disc. You know, I had a digital camera. They had it in the hard copy. They knew the criteria to get into the school. We researched the schools to find which one, go see these, and you know. And I always would really, really emphasize that education is the key. I don't care if you're Leonardo da Vinci. If you don't go to college, you can't ever get up to the level that you want. They'll stop you. It's a sad thing to say, but you know, you need to have your education. So students that really were struggling, some of them are making way more money than these kids that were just, you know, on the academic, you know, trail. And that's the main thing. You just have to have that belief.
Well, I know that recently you've been doing some acting, and I want to talk a little bit about that. What's it like to practice that kind of art, and how is it similar or different from visual art?
Well, that's just been to me just a craziest thing. I got into it, I was at a class reunion, and one of my classmates was into this acting modeling, asked me to go up with her to a production company, and I you know, never done anything like that in my life, but I'd retired and I thought, why not? It sounds like fun. Got a contract in New York, and we went to the Waldorf, and I had to compete in this competition. I got trophies and medals, and I was like, okay, life is over. I mean, I really did something great. I thought that was the end of it. But then I got the contract, and I've been getting, you know, jobs. So I was on the Gene Simmons Family Jewels reality show, which hasn't aired yet. And I discovered that I needed to get some basic skills in acting, because I didn't know what camera to look in. I didn't know what was going on. I did the best I could, you know, with no knowledge. And I've done some other things since then, Susan Lucci infomercial, you know, and major television kinds of things. So I just thought, well, I better start taking some acting classes. And the similarity, I think, is it's fun for me. It's not my passion, like teaching was my passion. Art is, and painting is my passion. But the similarity, I think, is the same thing, is having that, the good actors that you see, because now I'm analyzing, you know, when I go to the movies or go to theater, why is that person really making me think they're that character? What is happening? And I think they get into that zone where they are so in tune with, you know, their lines and their feelings, and they're actually becoming that you can relate and you can feel. And I think that's the similarity in the arts. And I think the difference between a good artist, a good performer, a good musician, a good writer, and one that goes on forever. Now, why are there paintings in the Louvre, and people can feel when they look at them? And I think that's the secret, is when you feel something from a masterpiece, when you feel something from an actor's performance, when you feel something when you read a book that makes you cry, you know, or laugh. I think that's the answer to a piece that touches somebody universally for era after, you know, generation after generation. The acting thing for me is fun, and that's about it. And I'm learning about myself. I'm learning new things. You know, it's never too late.
Well, the question we always ask at the end of the show is, why is art essential to you? So we know now you practice at least 2 arts, and you're also a teacher, which is another kind of art. But why is it essential to you to be involved in the arts?
I just think that from the time I was little, my dad was actually an artist. He not in his day job, but in the evenings he was an engraver. And he was probably the last engraver in California. And he did all the silver buckles and the bridles and the bits and the spurs and the conchos for the saddles at night. And I used to watch him, and he would just, sketch on those silver. It'd come in the mail in these, 8x10 sheets, and he'd cut it out. Sometimes I'd help him, but he made his own tools, and he'd just carve it. So turning something that's just an ordinary thing into something that's absolutely incredibly beautiful. I don't know, I've just always had this, I guess people that want to create, it's just inside them. And to bring something, I think art is actually showing us what the human being is really like, because that's the only way that we can actually see what's inside another person and feel it and hear it in music. So I think it's essential because it makes the world a more civilized place. And it's a universal language as well. I mean, you can look at art and you can tell about a war. You can tell, it's just transcends language. So I think it's essential. I mean, I feel like it's just been my life. So, of course, it's so important.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today, and it's lovely to hear about the various arts that you've practiced and the things that you've done. And I think you've given us some valuable insights into the artistic process. So very much want to thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it very much.
Join us next time on Art is Essential, when we will talk to another artist.